my balloon animal after a couple of days lying down on a sponge to support it. And as I look at it, it reminds me a little bit of a horse. So I decide that this is the animal that, in fact, I want to make. So what you're seeing is me kind of working on shaping the form, starting to get it to look a little bit more horse-like, less generic. And all I'm using right now is just water and my fingers. And I'm kind of pushing the clay around, getting the legs skinnier, and starting to think about the shape of a horse's legs and its body, and kind of pulling that clay a little bit with a little bit of water to help me out. And the other thing you might want to notice about the balloon is that there's a lot of air inside that clay, and that air is actually allowing it to stay full, and it's without collapsing. So what's critical as you're working on your pinch pot balloon animal, whatever that may be, keep that air securely safe inside. Try not to pop the balloon, so to speak, because that air is going to help support your creature while you're working on it. And so as I'm looking at it, you're seeing that I'm kind of pushing the clay around and kind of thinking about that shape of the horse and pushing the clay where it needs to go. Now, horses are very strong animals, and so I'm starting to think about not only making the legs thinner, but also I'm starting to add clay about where the legs meet the body. So you see here that I'm adding some clay and kind of building up the strength of that limb, and kind of building that up and making sure that it's secure. So I've fast forwarded this video. As you can see, I sped it up just a little bit because this whole process of kind of making this animal a reality probably took me I'd say about 40-45 minutes of kind of where you originally saw the video. And now you see I'm kind of looking at the legs and seeing if that's what I want, and kind of shaping them. I realize that horses walk a little bit differently. So now I'm changing that shape and seeing if that's a position that I like. Okay, so I fast forwarded a little bit, and now I'm focusing on the head. You can see here I added a ball of clay, and I'm blending that in to kind of strengthen its jowl area. That's its kind of jaw. Because they have very, very strong jaws. And the sponge is almost like a little an assist to keep the legs from completely collapsing, because they're very soft and they're very fragile at this stage. So it helps me to focus on something else. So now I'm kind of continuing further, and you can see I kind of move the sponge a little bit. And now I'm looking at as I'm working on this, I'm noticing that the legs appear to almost be leaning on the sponge. You can see he's kind of hanging out on the sponge, and it gave me the idea as I'm working that maybe I don't want the horse standing up at all, but in fact I want him kind of relaxing and laying down, like he's lying down in a field somewhere. So that's where I'm going to go next with this, once I'm done kind of adding some more structure to the face. And I'm kind of building up that jaw and building up that neck area. And then here I'm making some initial ears to add to the top, kind of getting them more or less in the area that I want. Notice that I'm smoothing that out every time to really make sure that you're not making it look like you just stuck them on. And here I've got a little wooden tool. This is the first time I've actually used a tool. And I've got a series of little small tools that I like to use that help me out. Again, if you have a popsicle stick, that works pretty well for most things you're going to need. So, but of course, if you do want to purchase some tools, you're welcome to that. But sometimes the simplest things just do the trick. Now I'm starting to think about the muzzle. That's the front part. And I noticed that his front part of the horse's face is a little bit skinny. So I'm adding here like a little lower jaw. There's a little piece of clay that I'm adding to the bottom. And then you see I'm kind of positioning that in. You can kind of see that it almost looks like he's smiling a little bit right now. But it's building up that lower jaw area. Again, just a little bit of water. So the tools don't have to be extraordinary. The best tools that you have are going to be your hands, and just maybe a couple of things other than that, like again a popsicle stick or a little bamboo skewer or something like that. Okay, and I'm just looking now at more of the body and how the shoulders might look and how the chest of the horse might look. And here's I'm kind of playing with the legs and the position of the legs when I decide about here that I want him laying down. So now I'm kind of folding those legs back as if he's now resting. And just getting the initial idea of what a horse would look like if it were laying down. Adding a little water when I can, because the clay has gotten a little bit dry since I've let it sit for a while, and you don't want it to get too dry. I'm kind of shaping its back haunches and thinking about what that might look like. So here you can see that I'd spent some time on it. I ended up looking up a video and some images on horses lying down, and that made me realize that the legs were actually going the wrong direction. So now I'm focusing on some details, and I'll work on the hooves and the mane and the tail, and really start to look closely at the muscle structure of the horse. So I'm not quite done yet, but I'm feeling a little bit better about it from when I first started. It certainly is different than when I first started. And I just want you all to be open to the idea that what you start off with isn't always what you end up with. But be patient, be willing to experiment, be willing also, if you are like me, like detail, that you look up some ideas.